Hello, my name is Ed Turner. I'm the creator of Insects in the Museum. What I want to do in today's post is introduce you to some of the diversity of different plants, wildflowers or weeds, depending on your point of view, that can be found in gardens across the UK. What I've done in my own garden is just select you a few of these different ones to illustrate some of the range of biology they can show, the range of different conditions they can grow in, and also to show how important they can be for a whole variety of other things, different species that rely on them, either as a food plant for their caterpillars, things like that, to feed on the leaves, herbivores, or because of the flowers they provide for pollinators, for bees and butterflies. So I'm going to start off with quite a common species. A lot of you have this in your garden, and this is called cleavers or sticky weed, sometimes goose grass, lots of different names for these plants. And this is one of these rather lovely things. It grows up through borders, but it's got these beautiful little kind of hairs, oppressed hairs all over it, that mean it's sticky. So it grabs to stuff rather like Velcro. And that means as a plant it can grow up, it can ramble through other plants. It grows really, really fast this time of the year. It also uses these little hairs on its seeds to allow it to disperse. So of course what it does is little round seeds will stick to things. So people or animals will move it around and it can find itself, it can seed itself into all different areas of your garden. So quite an amazing bit of biology, a really good way for this species to actually disperse. There's other ways it can do it as well. It's another quite a common plant, and this is a wild geranium, something called Herb Robert. I get this a lot in my shady areas of my garden. It's rather a nice plant, especially if you've got gravelly areas. Let this self-seed, it will fill up some green around the edges of your gravel. Rather nice little open flowers, quite good for pollinators. Plant itself's got these beautiful, very long hairs in this case. You can see almost like a silvery sheen all over the plant. The seed heads are really impressive because what they do is they explode, sort of pushing the seeds out in all different directions. So again, letting this plant disperse. So you can do it physically, either with those hairs to stick to things or with exploding seeds. Another way you can do it, of course, is you can get animals to move the seeds around for you. This is a nice example of this. This one's still in flower, and this is dog violet. I'll show you the flowers here. Rather lovely little blue flowers, really, really pretty. Again, this is the sort of plant I find a lot in the shady conditions of my garden. And this has tiny seeds it produces, which have got something on it called an elaiosome, which is sort of a protein and fatty thing, which ants really like. And so what the ants do is they take it down into their nest as a food source, and of course what they're doing is they're planting the seeds. So it's a very clever way of the plant providing a little bit of a resource for the ants, and the ants doing the planting for them. So a really nice way of getting around. I've already mentioned quite a few of these plants and are found in different types of conditions, and you'll find that lots of plants are like that. They'll be found in different parts of your garden, some in the lawn, some in the border, depending on whether they like more closed conditions, whether they like more disturbed soils. Of course, a couple of very common plants that you'll find growing in your garden lawn are things like this. Of course it's a dandelion, and things like this, of course it's a daisy. These are really nice plants in their own right, especially at this time of year, because they come into flower quite early, so they provide a really important nectar source, food source for pollinators. And I think they're rather lovely in their own right. So we tend to overlook these, and people do their best to get rid of a dandelion. But if you look at it closely, look at that. I mean, that's a really beautiful little flower. If the dandelion, I think, was rare, people would travel from all over the country to see it. Just because it's common, we tend to not value it. But I think we can all find space for some dandelions in our lawn. I think they're really nice and really good for spring flying flea species to provide that nectar, that pollen source. Things you might find more in your borders, so you can find things like this. There's also plants that really like more disturbed conditions, the soil being constantly turned over. But just by the act of gardening then, you're providing different habitats for a whole range of different plants. This is quite a common one in my garden. I'll show you here, it's beautiful sort of starry flowers. This is something called chickweed. Grows very fast, can grow over the winter time as well. And this is something that really likes those disturbed soil conditions. And it's got a really clever bit of biology to enable it to cope with that. And it's got a very long seed bank. Its seeds can survive for a long time. It's been found they can live for up to 40 years in the soil. So very hard to get rid of these. But why would you want to? The flowers themselves are really rather beautiful. Something to celebrate in your garden. There's also, of course, things that are going to cope with less disturbed conditions as well. So the things that live actually within your lawn. We've already seen the dandelions and the daisies. And this is something I often find in the more shady bits of my lawn as well. This is something called lesser celandine. When it's in flower, which is again, it's early in the year, so it's very important for spring swine species, it's got a flower which looks a bit like a buttercup. Some little open flowers. This one's now going into seed, and you can see the seed head here developing. Again, this is something that copes with a bit of shade. So again, something for the shadier corners of your garden. Of course, the other thing, as well as providing food for pollinators that plants can do in your garden, is they can also provide food for herbivores, for caterpillars if you're thinking about butterflies. Here's a couple of nice species that you might want to get in your garden, very encouraging in the butterflies. This is the first. This is something called garlic mustard, or jack in the hedge, and it's got rather lovely kind of flower spike that's growing this time of the year, growing really fast right now. It's got little white flowers on the edge, and the leaves themselves are quite large. You get big leaves developing over the winter. It's got quite a distinctive smell, so garlic mustard, it does smells a little bit garlicky. You can use fresh leaves in salad. It's edible. It's quite a nice thing. But as a food plant for butterfly, this is one of the preferred food plants of something called the orange tip butterfly, which is particularly found at this time of the year. It's a spring specialist. And the females, which don't have, males have orange tips, the females don't have those orange tips, but in about a week's time they're going to be flying all over my garden looking for places to lay, and what they do is they dot their little orange eggs right on the developing flowers. What happens is the larvae hatch, the caterpillars hatch, and then as the seed heads develop, the larvae will feed on them. So getting this plant in your garden, letting this plant survive in your garden, will encourage in this lovely springtime species. Of course, one of the best plants you can have for caterpillars, for butterflies, is this. Something people do their best to get rid of in a garden. This is of course stinging nettles. So most things won't want to go near stinging nettles because they've got these long, you can see, trichrome hairs, these stinging hairs all over the stinging nettle. But this is a really, really important food plant for butterflies like peacock butterflies, small tortoiseshells, red admiral butterflies. All of their larvae feed on this. So again, something well worth devoting a corner of your garden to. Don't dig up your stinging nettles. Plant them somewhere, not just in a shady corner, somewhere nice and sunny. So really celebrate your nettles, and that will give you the best chance of encouraging in these wonderful butterflies, and also giving you a chance to see some of the amazing caterpillars, or beautiful big black spiky caterpillars, which you'll be able to see if you've got this plant in your garden. So hopefully what I've tried to show you is just a range of a few of the different common wildflowers, let's not call them weeds, wildflowers which can be found in a UK garden. And what I want to try and do is encourage you to not use any herbicides, but to let these things grow a little bit more, to let your garden be a bit less tidy. What you'll find is if it's less tidy, you'll have a range of these wonderful plant species, but of course they'll be encouraging in loads and loads of other animals, loads of different insect species that you can enjoy.